In this video, we're going to get tips from a divorce coach and mediator on how to save your marriage or stay sane while you're isolated at home. Let's go. Hey, Robin, why don't you give us your 10-second elevator pitch and introduce yourself?
All right. First of all, thank you, Antoine, for having me on. My name is Robin Graine. I am a divorce coach and a divorce mediator. I've been in this business for about 20 years. My divorce coaching's highly specialized for this one question. Is my marriage over or should I get a divorce? I very efficiently, inexpensively help people figure out their entire divorce settlement, custody, child support, alimony, division of assets and debt. I've been giving a lot of advice to people lately, particularly my divorce clients who are spending time together under the same roof, even though they've decided to get divorced. It's hard enough to spend your separation time under the same roof, which is quite common when you can't get out.
Right.
You know, you can't go to work, you can't get a break. I mean, you are
Right.
literally stuck under the same roof with somebody that you've already decided it's over.
Yeah.
What's even more awful for people is when they've decided in their mind that the marriage is over, but they haven't quite told the other person. Those would be my coaching clients who are still trying to make that decision. So they haven't told their spouse. Their spouse doesn't know. And tip number one, now might not be the time to tell them.
Right. Because
now might not be the time to tell them. Although I'll tell you, I'm getting a lot of calls from those people.
There's an underlining thing that's going on, that we're confined together. Some of us might be lucky to be in a big home, so you can actually be a little bit more separated and have your space. But I have some friends of mine that actually are living in a 700 square foot small apartment in a big city. And that's like, right. So it's like, imagine if you already had some friction with your spouse and now you're confined in a 700 square foot space, it just amplified. The other thing that I saw this morning, which was like, oh my God, I didn't think of that, was domestic violence. And asking people to call on your friends if you think that there might be something there, like to check in. So
the rates are rising. I keep things are coming across my screen about that, and whenever there's a stressful situation, domestic violence occurrence goes up.
This video is really a public service. It's just to help people. So, please share this video with people that you think would be appropriate for, or people that are struggling, or just people that you've heard, my wife is driving me nuts, or I'm about to kill my husband, one of those things. So let's start from the top. Like, generally, I know one of the things that you talk about is empathy. So tell me more about that.
Well, I think that the most important thing that everybody has to do when they're living under the same roof with somebody that the relationship's struggling is to constantly try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And I know that this sounds like a lot of work, but it's a lot of work to live in a miserable situation too. It's less work to do what you can do to make your situation pleasant, and if you don't care whether it's pleasant or not, what about your kids if you have kids? What I always say is relationships are a lot of work. They just are. That's why my mediation business is successful, because for the most part, people don't put in the work. Relationships just don't happen. So when you're in this situation under the same roof and you can't get out, you need to be empathetic with the other person. So the basic empathy that I believe is important is that for women, and this is, I understand this is generalities, but I call it like I see it. I have a reputation for being very, very direct. I call myself compassionate yet direct.
I concur.
I've been doing this for almost 20 years.
Right.
So women need to understand that men, for the most part, have I call it a fix-it mentality. They want to fix the problem. I
Sure.
was thinking this morning about this interview, and I was thinking about an example. Here's an example. I betcha men invented the washing machine. And I bet you in the household of the man that invented the washing machine, the mom or the wife was in the background screaming, just help me with the darn clothes. We got to wash these clothes. The kids have dirty clothes. And the man's in the background going, but if I can just get the whatever to do its thing, this is going to be simpler. So men want to fix problems. Men are what I call forest people. They see the whole forest, and they're going to figure out how to either cut down every tree or save every tree or manage that forest. They're going to do something with the woods. Women are tree people. They see something that needs to be done, like, for example, a baby that needs to be cared for. I believe all of this is biological. A lot of people don't. But I'm 57 years old. I'm entitled to believe what I believe.
Right.
So women being the focus on the thing, the job that needs to be done, they're what I call do what you got to do people. Men are the fix it people. Women are the do what you got to do people. They are not as prone to thinking about how do we resolve this problem. They just do the day to day what needs to be done. They're
Right.
not necessarily going to develop a specific system. They're just going to do what needs to be done. And I believe that comes from biology with having, kids. You birth the kids, you nurse the kids, you take the kids, the men's out hunting. You just got to do what needs to be done. And you can't not systematize the raising of children. If you try to be over systematic in raising children.
And I think that that's the empathy, is just put yourself in the other people's shoe.
Right.
We're wired differently.
In this instance, in this crisis situation, I understand what you're saying about the just wanting to be listened to or just needing a hug. That's a classic man-woman problem where the man goes right in and fixes it, even if he doesn't have the information to fix it. He doesn't have enough information to fix it. He's going to come up with the solution because that's the orientation. But in this situation, I'm particularly thinking in terms of when the kids are home, there's a million little chores that have to be done nonstop. And the moms, what I'm hearing from my clients, my kids are grown, the moms are doing these million little chores just trying to get through the day. Whereas the dads are trying to come up with a system, a fix it, a watch the news and see what you're supposed to do. The moms are just punting 24 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
All the kids are home from school. The mom's setting up the what did I hear the other day? I have to set up everything for the school. I got to set up, the little desks and, make some routine for the kids. What's the dad doing? He's watching the news. Here's an empathy thought. Dad is watching the news, not because he's a lazy bum laying around, watching with his Twitter feed. He's watching the news because he's trying to protect his family. And he's feeling that the best way to protect his family is to know exactly what's going on, to predict what's going to happen next. Meanwhile, he's being yelled at by the mom because it doesn't appear that he's doing anything.
Right.
But to him, he is doing something. That is his contribution. He may be on the computer 24 hours a day. This is fun. Trying to figure out how to manipulate the family's investment so that all their money doesn't disappear in the stock market.
Right.
Meanwhile, the mom's saying, would you help me prepare the food for the kids?
Right.
Because she's doing what I got to do to get through the day.
Right.
He's looking at the forest. See what I'm saying?
Right.
He's looking at the trees.
Right.
Trees is making 3 meals a day. Forest is protecting the investments for later.
Right. Well, so if you want to know, is my husband a lazy bum? So if he's on the couch and he's got Doritos on his
Well, no
belly,
Doritos, no
and he
Doritos.
hasn't changed his underwear in 3 days, okay, he's a lazy bum. But the others are, yeah, and I totally hear what you're saying, and I can completely see the dynamics on in my home. I'm the one looking at the websites and looking at the stats, the number, and I'm looking at what's happening in my state, in
Mhm,
Florida.
mhm.
And actually it's funny because I share some of the news with Colleen, and she just got emotional with me. I'm like, oh crap, I was just giving you data so you could be informed, but it affected her emotionally. So then
Yeah,
I
see?
give her a hug, and it's just I can totally see the
Yeah,
dynamics in my home
yeah.
of how it works. So this is a great tip. So deploy. So tip number one is deploy empathy.
Right. And if you have reverse people, I mean, I'm right outside of DC. So I have plenty of, I call them my STEMI moms, where they're doing cybersecurity for a living,
Right.
or they're, working for an organization that it's all facts and figures and numbers. And, this is the land of big data around here.
Right.
Plus we have, so many IT companies. It's not just the federal government.
Right.
So, and then I have my stay-at-home dads. So sometimes the roles are reversed, but the fact is, whatever you got going on in there in your home with
Right.
your orientation, whether you're a fix-it person or a do what you got to do person,
Yeah.
it's not going to change right now.
Right. Right. All right. Great. So
Definitely not.
that was an amazing first tip. Deploy empathy. Why don't you tell me one of the things that's interesting for me is how does anger show up? Like because I know it shows in different ways.
Hmm.
So because you have a lot of experience in there, like how does fear and anger shows up? So you
Yeah,
can actually see some signs there,
yeah,
specifically for men, because it's going to look differently for a woman than for a man.
yeah, yeah. So, well, it can show up as domestic violence, as we talked about before, right?
Yeah.
But I think, and I actually learned this in my own divorce, that so many emotions are the result of fear. We have a strong, I call it a fear reflex,
Mm-hmm.
which, that whole fight or flight thing.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're not always running, sorry, I'm pushing my cat away. We all have this
Yeah,
problem.
that's actually great.
The problem is cats and children. That's the
I
problem.
was like, what is she doing there? And I'm seeing a thing, and I'm like,
I
what's
know.
going on? It's totally cool. I mean,
We all now know how disciplined each other's animals are, right?
right, right, right.
With the Zoom world. Okay, so I would say that it's not how anger shows up. I think we all know how anger shows up. It's how fear shows up. So
Mm-hmm.
fear can show up as anger,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which can be yelling. Oh, by the way, so number one tip of living under the same roof of somebody you're not quite sure you want to be married to,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're trying to do that in-house separation to start the
Mm-hmm.
clock running for divorce,
Mm-hmm.
quite common in many states, mine included, Virginia. No yelling, just no yelling, just no yelling. You can't do that in close quarters, particularly if you're in a 700-foot apartment.
Right.
So fear shows up as anger. It shows up as depression.
Mm.
If you're really scared, it can mess with your body chemistry, your brain chemistry, or whatever chemistry you believe is related to depression, and mess you up, and you're not getting out of bed because your fear has depressed your system. It's almost like it's a defense mechanism, and your
Mm-hmm.
mind is not going to deal with the fear. It's going to flip you into depression.
Right.
Where
Which shows up as being withdrawn or staying in bed,
Yeah,
or just being in bed or
exactly,
being on the couch for hours at a time.
exactly.
Yeah.
You're not going to deal with it. So it's sort of a modern version of flight. You're not coming up with solutions for what you're scared about, because maybe you can't, because maybe it's coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
So your body flips you into depression. Where somebody like me, I
Mm-hmm.
remember when my husband left, I was busy. So here's another manifestation of fear, is hyper busyness. And I remember going to I went to a therapist, and I'm like, what the heck? I feel like I should be, because my husband just kind of left. So why am I like doing projects? That's when I started my mediation business. I was like, uh-oh, got to make money. I had been a yoga instructor. I was an attorney for years, but my mom job was fitness yoga lady. So, and all of a sudden I'm digging in and starting this business, and I'm thinking that I'm crazy because how can I do this?
Mm.
But some people, when they get so scared, their distraction is to get super busy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're living in a household with somebody whose 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 reaction to fear is a type of stress, is to be depressed and just sit there, and you're the type that gets busy, you're going to hate them.
Right. Yeah. So
You're going to hate
that's
them.
actually really important that you said, because now you have two people. So you have one that actually can't get out of bed, and then
Yeah.
the other one is just going to tear the garage apart and then just
Yeah.
reorganize everything and
Right.
label everything and label the kitchen,
Right.
because you have to keep busy to keep your sanity, and it just drives you nuts
Right.
that the other person is actually in bed
Right.
without. And then again, deploy empathy, and then just realize that
Exactly.
we're both reacting to fear and anger a different way.
Exactly. The other's just
Numbness.
numbness and just acting. That's the computer game person, just acting like nothing's happening.
Right. And just pretend it's just not happening. I'm just going
Yeah.
to go, which
I
actually
haven't heard a
is
lot about
also,
that,
which,
honestly. I have not heard a lot about that. I've
no,
heard more reactive behaviors that might look like numbness, but it's really a very
well,
strong reaction.
I think you want to check in with your alcohol consumption or cannabis or pills or whatever you want to, whatever you take to actually deal with your anxiety. It's just the first thing is recognize that you have fear, anxiety, and anger, and you can suppress it. So all those things are suppressant, but I think it's you're playing Russian roulette, and it's
Yeah, good
just,
term.
yeah, it's a good term, because I think it's going to pop out at one point, and it could really come out really ugly.
Yeah.
So I think every single one of us needs to check in and saying, because I think we all know,
Yeah.
are we drinking a little too much? Are we just consuming some of that stuff that is just not helpful? And it's just, I think there's no judgment here, because it's unprecedented what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I could understand that someone is tipping the bottle a little bit more than usual, but I think you might want to reverse that, because I don't think it's going to serve you in the long run. Yeah.
Why not have it dry during the sequester time?
Or just try a dry week, just see how it
A dry
feels.
week.
Yeah, but I just think that
Yeah.
this is something as you have friction, I think it would be tempting to go in that direction to
Yeah.
actually generate numbness. And you might want to check
Oh,
in. Well, first,
absolutely.
one of the tip is, like, first of all, you're suppressing your immune system, which might not be a good idea to do that
Oh
right
yeah, good
now.
point.
So the next thing I want to address with you is this is probably the biggest test our relationship has had, because now we're literally stuck together. And not only if you have kids, now you're stuck with your kids, and we're all in small quarters. So it's a huge test. So what are some of the tips that you would share with us to deal with that?
Yeah, I thought really hard about how to answer this question. For those people that are living under the same roof, trying to meet their, specific state period of time before they can get divorced and don't have kids,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter that much that this is the biggest test your relationship has ever had, because
Mm-hmm.
chances are you're going to split and that's going to be it. But for those that have kids, even adult kids, your relationship doesn't end. I say all the time, if you have children and you're getting divorced, you have half a divorce. If your marriage is teeter-tottering, like my coaching clients trying to decide, should I end this marriage? I see everything right with looking at this as an opportunity to save that marriage. I don't need any mediation clients. I started my coaching business because I'm trying to help people prevent an unnecessary and premature divorce where possible. Eh, So, so, so one of the first things that I think is really important is people are noting that their spouse is not making them feel safe. These are the people that are going to end up getting divorced after
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
right? We all know that that's coming. Babies and divorce all over the internet. We know
Yeah,
that.
I
Babies and
think in night
divorce.
we're going to see a baby boom in 9 months, and we're going to see a divorce boom in
Right. Well, I'm
whenever
already
this
seeing
ends.
that. I'm already seeing lots of phone calls. So if you now are convinced 100% that your partner is not somebody that will help you make safe, and even might be somebody that makes you feel not safe, okay, now you know. Save that until after the quarantine. You do not want to be living under the roof with somebody after you've said, you know what? You're basically worthless as a partner. You make me feel, I feel less safe with you than on my own. Why do you got to say that? Just don't say that. If you got to live under the same roof, don't say it. Now you know. Call a divorce coach, call a lawyer, call a mediator, call a friend, call somebody. But you don't need to say that.
Right. This is not going to
Well,
help.
what value will that be?
Right. It's actually, yeah, especially, especially if you can't leave, which is where where we all are.
Exactly. What
This is,
value would that do? The other thing is, and this is whether you think you're going to divorce your spouse, you've already decided, you're just waiting for the courts to open up or what have you, or you're just living with somebody. See if you can find something to make that person comfortable. Don't wait for them to ask. Just if there's something that you can do. Like I know for my parents who are in their 80s and are, truly sequestered. I'm still going to the grocery store. There's always, when I bring them their groceries, which I wipe down with alcohol before I bring to them, there's always something in the bag of groceries. So that would be an example.
like a
There's always something.
something that they didn't
There's
ask, but
always a treat. There's always flowers. There's
there's a
always
treat.
something, a little. There's always something.
Right.
If you have a spouse that likes to watch TV and you can't stand what they watch it with them for an hour, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just, don't ask, would you like me to watch TV? That's what I did in my marriage to my kid's dad. Was I would always ask him what he wanted, and he's a man and he wasn't going to say I need, so, and he would say I'm
Just do.
fine. So I'm like, okay, good. I got other stuff to do. But don't
Right.
ask. Just if there's something you can do to make that other person more comfortable,
Yeah.
do it. Whether
If
it's doing something or stop doing something, do it.
right.
I'm not saying anything big. Do one little thing.
Right.
Little thing. It's no big deal. Not everybody's good at communicating, right? They're just not. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing. Ask each other. Do your best, especially with your non-communicative spouse, and usually they're married to very communicative spouses. Funny how that works. See if try to think of one thing and ask them to think of one thing that would help you get through this. Either I don't know, you always do the dinner dishes. Always. If I could just not have any responsibility or even a thought that I got to do the dinner dishes, that's fine. If that's the one thing, whatever that one thing is. Like right now, I'm not married at the moment, but my son is home from New York City. I said that,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed he did two of these things. One thing that I would like is for somebody to do the dishes so that I don't even have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not a negotiation. I don't even got to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be one nice thing that someone could do for me. And last night he did that. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't ask me, Mom, do you want me to do the dishes? He just did it, hoping he does it every night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now his sister's coming home too, so maybe the two of them.
Yeah.
That would be my one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do them all day long, and that would be, so just one little thing. One little thing.
Okay.
Then here's one, and some of this just comes from standard marriage therapeutic protocol. Note what the other person's doing right. Just like good bosses do with their employees.
Mm-hmm.
Just like good dog owners do with their dog.
Actually, it's really
Right?
important. It's very interesting what you're saying, because when you're thinking about a boss, we all know bosses that we've had in our lives, or maybe we have right now, that are always pointing out what's wrong, and we hate that with a passion. But we've always had that, and but saying what people are doing right, or actually
Yeah.
noticing what they're doing right, because everybody does right and wrong things. Nobody is perfect.
People do good stuff
Um,
all day long. I'm
so
not
yeah,
saying empty praise. I'm not a big, fan of, like they call them the trophy moms. I'm not a big fan of praise for nothing.
hmm
Thanks for getting up in the morning. I'm
yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah. But
but
he's
when somebody does something, which they do all day long,
mm-hmm,
that that will make a more positive environment in your home. Now, I know people would worry if they're planning on getting a divorce, but they haven't told the other person, and all of a sudden we have coronavirus, and now's not the time to tell them. Are they going to confuse their spouse who's been given accolades for all the good things they did, when they turn around after they're not sequestered and say, I want a divorce? That's not the issue. The issue is getting through this right now.
yeah. All right,
It'll be fine. And
that
it'll
was
be friendlier divorce too. So there's nothing to lose.
yeah. All right, that's awesome. So there's four behaviors that you point out that kill relationships.
Right,
So tell us, what are these four
right.
behaviors that we need to pay attention to?
And I can't take credit for these. These come from John Gottman, who
Mm-hmm.
is the number one marriage and divorce researcher probably in the world. Some of his
Mm-hmm.
research is a little weird because he hooks, I don't know what you call them, nodule, whatever. He hooks things up to people's bodies, sticks them in an apartment with cameras everywhere, and watches them and measures all their bodily reactions, both people in good marriages and bad marriages. So a lot of his research comes from a little weird place, but
Uh-huh.
I, but he's done more research than anybody else. And he calls them the four horsemen of the apocalypse of killing a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Those are: one, criticism. And I already
Mm.
mentioned that before. Now is not the time to criticize.
Right.
Two, defensiveness.
Mm.
Classic. Classic.
Mm.
You don't need to defend yourself. Somebody might just be trying to have a conversation. It's not necessarily about you. That comes obviously from a place of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
If if every time someone has to try to have a conversation with you, you defend yourself, that's not a conversation. That's a battle.
Right.
So, one, criticism. Two, defensiveness. Three, contempt.
Mm.
Once one or the other people feels contempt for the other, that's when you call my mediation service,
Right.
because it's pretty much over. And that's very strong, and it's very common. And
How
people
does
live
it show up? So tell me, how does the contempt shows up? Do you
nothing
have
the
an
other
example?
person does. I would say, I mean, these are John Gottman's words. I would say loss of respect. That's more my way of talking. When you just don't respect the other person anymore. Pretty much
Mm.
no matter what they say, you filter everything they say through. They don't know what they're talking about.
Mm.
They're only saying this or believing this because they're so into themselves, so narcissistic. So it's like it's a filter. I'm big on filters. It's a filter over everything that they say or do. You feel is just because of their self-centeredness. So even if they did something nice for you,
Mm.
you would be contemptuous of them because you figured they're thinking, what can I get out of this?
Right, right. Okay, totally get it. And what's the third one? The fourth one?
And one of the key signs of contempt, and
Mm-hmm.
when people do this, when I'm working with them in mediation or even joint coaching, I do some joint coaching too,
Mm-hmm.
a husband and wife in the same room. It's eye rolling.
Oh,
I really got to watch myself when the eye rolling starts, because I know we're not getting anywhere when the eyes start rolling.
yeah.
And
The
even
eyes roll. So actually, that's a great example of contempt, is eye rolling, or
really,
he or she
really,
goes again, or he goes again with his,
oh yeah,
standard operating BS.
yeah,
Okay, so I totally get it. Eye rolling is
yeah,
contempt. Okay, got
yeah,
it.
yeah. Stonewalling, which is
So
just
that's the fourth. That's the fourth.
that's number four.
Yeah,
Number
number
four.
four.
One,
Stonewalling.
criticism. Two, defensiveness. Three, contempt. Four, stonewalling. That's not letting the other person get anywhere. You try to talk with them, they just walk away from you.
Right.
I also put into the stonewalling category being yesed to death. I have experienced that a lot.
Tell me
Being
more about that.
yesed to death, where you ask somebody to do something or stop doing something, and they yes you to death, but they don't do anything.
Oh,
They don't
it's the
stop
yeah.
doing the thing
Is
you
that
ask.
it's part of a version of that would be yes, dear, right? Like I have
Yeah,
no intent of doing whatever you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah, can you please do that? I'm like, yes, dear. And there's a little bit
yeah,
of eye rolling. So it's kind of like contempt and
yeah. It's
stonewalling at the
related.
same time.
Sure,
It's like I will not. I'm saying
sure,
yes, but there is
sure.
absolutely no intent to do it
Right.
whatsoever.
But the
Got it.
tricky part of stonewalling is there's a lot of people out there, and I deal with a lot of them because,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, I'm in the land of, IT and cybersecurity and people that are wired to not be running their mouths all the time. I mean, they're, it's not that they're not articulate, it's just that they're sparse in their words. What the person that's not stonewalling but is just quiet needs to learn to say is, I need some time to think about that.
Mm.
And if the other person says, it's just a simple request, I know it is for you, but for me, I got to mull stuff around. And it
Mm.
takes me a while to absorb.
Right.
So the information goes in, you need to absorb it, you need to process it, then you utilize it. Some
Mm-hmm.
people do that quickly, some people do it slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yeah.
want them to do it slowly. That's how they're wired.
Yeah, and it's actually it's very interesting what you're saying because I'm very quick at making decisions
Me
personally,
too.
and that would be the thing that would actually drive me nut. And someone not making a decision, make a decision now. What do you think? But it's like, yeah, if someone say I need
Not
time to
everybody thinks.
process it,
Yeah.
yeah, that may be like okay, then I'll say by when, by when will I
Right.
know?
And right
But
now
at
we have
least then,
all the time in the world.
but by when is actually a great place to be
By
because
when?
yeah, the by when because someone
Yeah,
said
that's a good one.
they said, I
Yeah.
need a couple of days. Okay, got it. So I'll get back to you in a couple of days, process it and everything.
Right. Good
And then
one.
hopefully you'll have an answer in a couple of days, which is not fast enough for me, but at least I'll be able to um, uh, have that in my head. Okay, so in a couple of days, I'll have an answer to
Yeah.
whatever my question is. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And we got the time now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We got the time.
What else do we have, right? To wrap this up, I'd like you to, with your expertise and experience with doing this, can you give us like 3 tips for men that they could deploy or deal with or handle while we're going through this isolation in our homes?
Right. Okay. Once again, trying, doing my best not to be gender biased. These are tips for most men, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Number one, do the small chores that your wife asks you to do, even if
Mm-hmm.
you think they're stupid. Just do them. Who cares? Who cares? Like me, for instance, I mentioned before, I wipe all my groceries off with alcohol. My hands are raw from alcohol. But
Help me, yeah. So I said, so help me
that's what I
wipe,
do.
help me wipe.
Help me wipe all the groceries down with alcohol.
And
What
I may think as a man, I was like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever been
who
asked to
cares?
do. Who cares?
Just do
Do
it.
it. Okay.
Just do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Show appreciation. And this is for the dads. This is if you have the kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are the mom's doing a lot of the detail work. Not always, but I'm just basing what I'm saying on what my divorce clients and my coaching clients tell me goes on in their house. I'm not just making this up, and it's not self-reference criteria. This is what people tell me when they get divorced. So I know these are problems.
Mm-hmm.
Show appreciation to your wife for all of the homeschooling that she's doing with the kids.
Yeah.
Even
And
if you think she's overdoing it,
right.
show appreciation because she's not she's a teacher. That's different. But if she's not a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
imagine If she's
Right.
doing all the work, and the same would go for a woman if the man's doing all the homeschooling activities, but that's a lot of responsibility for somebody to take on. So show appreciation generally, but that was a specific example.
All right. So the tip for men: do the small chores, show appreciation. And what's
The
the third
third is
tip?
to be present,
Mm,
right? Don't, you 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 can drift you you need to spend at least a portion of the day being present. And this
mm.
may be because of the clientele that I have, but it's just I hear so often from my wives and my moms in my mediation and coaching practice that, the minute the wedding bells stop ringing, the husband just,
Checks out.
yeah,
Yeah, not present. So it's actually it's an interesting distinction here, being present, because being present is not actually being in the house, because I can hear the men saying, "Well, I'm here. What else do you want from me?" Right?
I know, I
I'm here on the
know,
sitting on the couch. That counts as present. No, it actually doesn't count as present.
yeah,
Being present is actually active listening, and it's not listening to the voices in your head, but it's just like really listening to the other person. And I think that's actually a great tip. And it's like, and you don't have to do it for the entire day, but at least if you say, okay, I'm going to
right,
be fully present for an hour, and then just be,
right,
especially because we're doing this video for people that are possibly on the edge, right? There's just a lot of friction, and it's just like, oh, she's
yeah,
driving me nuts, or he
yeah,
is driving me bonkers. It's just practice being present. It's just,
right,
listening intently, just, no
right,
judgment, no
right,
answer back, just listen. All right, so that was 3 tips for men. This is awesome. Now let's talk about 3 tips for
okay,
women. What are the tips that you're going to give
okay.
women out there?
3 tips for women during coronavirus sequester. Number
Mm-hmm.
1 is the same tip for women that's always the tip for women no matter what, is and that's find time for yourself.
Hmm.
And as I was thinking about that when I'm coming up with my tips for this, video conversation, I thought, why would that not be find time for yourself for men? And the answer is, at the risk of sounding gender biased, men do that very well because
Yeah.
they'll do it by not being present.
Yeah. Yeah, you just sit on the couch, you watch you watch an old game, which actually
Exactly.
this is what they're playing. They're playing all NBA final games,
Exactly.
all NFL things. So you're gonna
Oh,
go
is that
and do
right? I
that.
didn't even know that.
And that's time for yourself. You just watch the game for
Yeah.
three
So
hours and
men tend to be better at figuring that out.
right.
That sort of self care. So women have to make sure that they do that,
Right. And then just find an hour and then ask. So it's also a
or even
powerful,
30 minutes. Not everybody's comfortable with an hour. I mean, an hour's a lot when you have, let's
yeah,
say, you have
kids and stuff.
screaming kids.
But it's also standing in a powerful request. It's like I guess that would be my tip for women out there. You gotta ask it, and you gotta make a demand. You gotta say, listen, I need time for myself, and I need the next 45 minutes to sit in the tub, and I don't want to
Yeah.
be interrupted. I don't want any knock on the door. I don't want to hear from you. I just need this time for myself. So it's kind of
Right.
like
Help me out.
refresh and make that request, because I think the other thing that I would see is that I'm trying to make some time for myself, and nobody's going to leave me alone. What you have to, I would say you have to request it, because on the other side you have men like
Yeah.
guys like me. That's like, well, you didn't ask me, you didn't say anything, like, right? So it's just make the
Yeah.
powerful request. Leave me alone for
Yeah.
half
I
an
think
hour,
getting out of the
45
house
minutes, and
is
it's like,
fun.
okay, got it,
Yeah.
fair.
Getting out of the house might be a good idea.
Right. And then one of the things you said is like, time for yourself is not social media. So say more about that.
Social media doesn't count as time to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Time to yourself is once again, I'm big on information needs to go in the brain. You need to absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to process it, and then you need to utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
That processing part doesn't happen when you're dealing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Usually happens when you're by yourself. That's why sleep's so important. It even happens in your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to process. This is a lot.
Yeah, it
This
is a
is a
lot to
lot.
process. Yeah. Yeah.
Social media can be numbing too. For some people, it creates anxiety. For some people, it's numbing. For some people, it feels good, but it doesn't. But you're not processing. That
Yeah.
is not your processing time.
Right, and which would be actually another tip that I'll say, and I don't know if I'll keep that in the video, but I'm going to say it. One of the things you could do, it might be a good moment for you. You're seeing it. I don't remember ever removing so many people from my social media because
Interesting.
I view their content as or what they're saying as toxic to my well-being.
Oh,
Right, I
give me an
don't want.
example.
I'm like, I'm like, I can't, because it angers me.
What's an example,
Um,
if you're comfortable sharing?
well, it's political.
Oh,
People
okay. I
being in
understand.
support of one side or
I
another,
understand.
and then like
I understand.
I just
Can't
get
do it.
off, and I'm like, I just really don't want this. I cannot deal with this right now.
Yeah.
It's too much, and so there's actually one of the things you can do, and it is specifically on Facebook. There's a setting where you can snooze people for 30 days, or you can unfollow people for 30 days,
Oh,
or actually unfollow them for forever. And then there's some people that I simply remove them. I posted something,
yeah.
they added a comment, and I just got angry. I could feel like me getting angry. And I just say, you know what? I'm just going to remove them.
That's
Uh,
good.
there'll be another 6 months. If they ever confront me, like, why did you remove me? I couldn't deal with
Yeah.
it. I just could not deal with your viewpoint that right now.
Right now.
It's not
Yeah.
good for my well-being. So I would rather move. And it's not that I want everything to be rosy. It's not. But it's just too much right now.
You
It's just
need that.
yeah.
That's the social media example of what I was saying about really being good to your spouse
Mhm.
and having, hopefully your spouse being good to you during this period of time, even if you're planning on ending the marriage. I mean, right now you can't deal with that person on social media. Just like I said, right now is not the time to tell your spouse, I really feel less safe with you than without you.
Right, right, right,
Now's not the time for that dialogue. Just like you might want to have a political dialogue later.
right. Yeah,
Not now.
you cannot snooze your spouse for 30 days. You cannot unfollow your spouse for 30 days. You
Right, but
cannot
you could be nice and make things pleasant.
right, because you're stuck with them. It's like, where are we going to go right now? So
Yeah,
it's an important
yeah,
distinction here. You don't have a choice, but
yeah.
get to the other side.
Yes, number two is accept help from
Hmm.
your spouse. This is for women again. Accept help from your spouse gracefully, and don't criticize.
Mm.
I'm going to tell a quick story of criticizing. I had a case a couple of years ago. It was a divorce mediation case.
Hmm.
The mom was a lawyer, and she was very
Hmm.
chop chop.
Hmm.
And the dad was, I forget what he did. He was in the finance industry or something. He was very chop chop too. So the two of them they weren't messing around with what they needed and wanted. They let each other know. They just didn't provide it. So there's an example of communication not being helpful. Two
Right,
highly articulate, communicative people that would tell each other, "No, I'm not doing that."
right.
So they had a 4-year-old and a newborn, and he could never really seem to do anything right with the 4-year-old. And why they had a newborn, I don't know, but they did. So
Hmm.
they had the second child, and he went to the Target, I think it was, for diapers and wipes and baby stuff. And
And
he
he
came
bought
back,
all the wrong stuff.
and she let him have it. Let him have it in front of the 4-year-old. He divorced her. He said, "That's it. That's it.
Mm.
Now you are demonstrating, you know, high levels of critique,
Hmm.
basically abusive behavior in
Hmm.
front of our daughter. I won't have it." And that was it. I've heard that a million, a million times, a million times with my clients. And the mom says, "You couldn't possibly do 50-50 custody with these kids. You don't help with the kids." And the dad says, "Because for the last 10 years, everything I did, you criticized me. So I stopped helping. I'm perfectly competent. Give them to me 50% of the time. I will feed them nutritious dinners. But since nothing I do is ever right, I don't want to be fighting in front of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I can't, it's that I won't, because I will not subject myself to that. I hear that all the time.
Resist the temptation to provide your critique. And I'm going to give you a tip here. Nobody cares. Right?
Well,
Ultimately
especially
is no.
if you know that you're headed for divorce, or if you are in the middle, if
Right.
you are in the middle
They
of,
just said the
of
waters are
your
rocky.
where are you going with the critique? You've already decided that this person doesn't do anything right and you're divorcing them, or they're divorcing you. Why
Right.
are you continuing with the training 101 housework program
Right.
of
Don't.
not going anywhere with
It's
that?
not. Yeah. You're not solving anything. All right.
As
Cool.
I
So that
always
was the
say,
second.
if you couldn't fix them when you were married to them, you sure as heck aren't going to fix them when you're divorced from them.
Yeah.
So just stop trying. Stop trying.
That's right. That's right. All right. So the first
No,
one is make time for yourself. Second one is don't criticize, accept the help and don't criticize. And then what's the third tip for women?
the third one is back to, way at the beginning of the video, is have compassion for your husband who's trying to fix things in a big way. Remember, he's the forest guy, you're the tree person. You're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do all the details of every day. He's trying to figure out, he might be trying to create a system but I mean, have compassion for the fact that your husband is doing perhaps the best that he can with the type of person that he is, and that is more of a, I am going to hunt the bear, you collect the berries.
Right.
That is who we are at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So try to engage. If your husband, since there's no bears to be hunted, your husband have compassion that your husband might be at a loss of what to do. So I would suggest, instead of giving your husband many, many, many little things to do, or screaming at him, why can't you figure this out? You can see what needs to be done. Give him a small number of bigger projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Tangible, bigger projects. Don't be mad that he can't figure out what to do. Say, I need your help. Be nice about it and assign bigger projects, not a million little projects, because he's
Right.
probably not going to do the little projects right anyway, and then you're going to be mad at him.
Right. The other thing that you're saying, as you're saying this, also for a man, if you've been laid off, if you lost your job or if you lost your income, and
Oh,
as a man, you feel like, as a provider, as the
oh,
one that's supposed to provide the safety, your manhood just took a huge hit.
absolutely. That's your
And whether
hunting.
you admit it or not, it's there. And I read a stat recently that half of America, so 160 million people, do not have more than $400 worth of
Exactly.
savings ahead of them. So, I think that some people are in a very precarious
Absolutely.
situation on top of that financially. But it hits at a manhood if you're obviously the one providing income in the home. You just took a your husband or the man of the house just took a hit. Now, obviously, if it's reversed for you, if you're the breadwinner and the man is the one that stays at home, the feeling is reversed for a
Yeah.
woman. We don't want to be gender biased there. But again, it's just, men will have that. I'm the provider. I'm the one that provides safety. And if that's been taken away,
Oh,
deploying
it's
compassion
devastating.
against that might be a good idea.
It's devastating. A woman can feel like she is a good wife and a good mother, whether she makes a buck or not. A
Yeah.
man that doesn't bring home the bacon, it's in
Yeah.
our culture, that tends to be more difficult. Well, I mean, we still have lots of stay-at-home moms,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but we don't have a lot of stay-at-home dads. That's cultural.
Yeah. I mean, there's more of that, but
More
technically,
of that,
yeah.
but
There's more of that, but you.
my statistics are not as much.
All right. Well, Robin, this was awesome. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you. Thank
spending
you.
time and sharing all this.
Thank you.
I sincerely hope that this video will make a difference
Me
with a few
too.
people that are having friction in their home. So those were invaluable tips. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Antoine. Thank you.
All
Take
right.
care,
Well,
everybody. Stay healthy.
hey, everybody, if you got value out of this video, please make sure to give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss a thing. And until next time, ciao.
Take care.